And now we come to the segment of the show where we see what Ken wants to talk about.
It's our favorite section.
It is our favorite section.
Because we get to make fun of someone.
Yes, we give Ken a hard time. Because he always wants to talk about the uber technical.
Well, didn't we talk about sun? What was the sun thing we talked about one time?
Oh, the
Sunny 16 rule.
Sunny 16 rule.
Like,
which is a great thing to know.
It's a great thing to talk about.
Which is actually a perfect segue right into what I wanted to talk about today.
Well,
perfect. Well, let's go
how
for
about
it.
that?
Because it's the most underutilized tool in a photographer's toolbox that we can have. And also it actually helps on your equipment too.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
Let's
Okay,
find out
I'm
why.
anxious to hear this.
It's a light meter.
Okay.
A light meter. What is a light meter?
That is what it actually measures physically the light of either ambient, strobe, or whatever you're trying to measure within light. Okay. So your cameras can be set to the proper exposure at any given time. You also can know what the ratios of lighting you might have, like what they all call a 1:2 ratio or a 3:1, which is going to be your shadow side to your highlight side of what you're trying to expose for like your portraits or even scenes. But it's a time saver because I had one individual come into the location here at Pasadena, and he basically said, yeah, we had this photographer come in, and he set up these lights, and he had these backlights for the background, and he had this light for the main light for the subject. And it took him about an hour as he kept photographing and looking on the back of his screen and photographing, changing, and then looking back at the screen. It took him an hour to set up the shot.
His name is JP Morgan.
Must have been me. I was thinking the same thing. Dang.
I was keeping
an
that
hour
a
to set up
secret,
shot. You
okay?
don't say.
So, I mean, and here's like, okay, you could have had that set up in 5 minutes if you used a light meter. This is a time saver for you because it's going to tell you exactly what you need to set the camera to.
Well, how? Talk to us about how.
Okay.
Gotcha. But
so,
before we go into that, let me just say this. This is not an ad for Sekonic, even though it may look like an ad for Sekonic. It's because that's just about the only meter that's out there these days, isn't it?
they're
Spectra
pretty much
is-
one of the
yeah.
last ones. Spectras, those were really not for flash. Those are really always ambient for
Okay,
video.
yeah.
So, and the Spectras are a great meter. I mean, they're still used today.
I have a Spectra. That's what I use.
We can get them. We may have them chain wide, a couple in stock, but it's not something we stock heavily because, again, there's no spot meter built into those. It's pretty much all incident meters.
I love the spot meter.
The spot meter is great, and you also have to have the flash meter. I mean, for a still photographer,
For a still photographer,
doing
it's
both,
important.
You really have to have it.
And as the lines are being blurred more from a still photographer and a videographer, you kind of have to have the best of both camps now.
Great.
Yep.
So you do get that in these guys, and it really comes down to from like, you know, your lower entry point, which is literally not going to have any whistles and bells, and I mean like memory functions, where you can actually measure and then take average readings. You're not going to get that in the lower side of things like the L308S, for instance. The DC version is the same as the 308S, but it incorporates lux capabilities along with the ability of more angle of not angle shutter for your video, but more shutter frame rate to work with. So it's a little bit of a hybrid of the 308S.
Okay. Here's something that's always bugged me about light meters. How much do these cost?
$233, $279, $339, and $399, depending upon which version.
Okay.
What's this one?
Yeah, which is one?
And we're looking at $635 right
Okay,
now.
$635 for the spot meter feature, right? So it's like,
Sure.
Okay, you've got
1 degree.
You've got now cell phones. Everybody's got a cell
Right.
phone in their pocket. Now you've got companies that have specially designed a little incandescent bulb to go
Sure.
over the.
Can that be calibrated?
But I mean, talk to me about like the accuracy.
Well, accuracy is again, calibration process.
Okay.
So they go through a calibration process. The sensor is specifically built into this to be a sensor to measure light and wavelengths of light. So we have also all the readings that we're going to have, mid-tone values that we can play with. Yes, you know what? If you have one for yourself or for your cell phone and you're going to use that, how accurate is it truly?
It's actually pretty accurate. Mine has come in like with it because I have both. I've got mine, and I like to compare.
It's coming
them.
with at how many of degrees? See,
Here's
where
usually it's spot on. Usually it's spot on. Every once in a while it's a third off, and so
really.
it's like
But
So when that third is
not that-
off,
a third's not that big of a deal.
Yeah,
you know,
but
it's like,
yeah, it
Within
is. We're not
digital-
in the day of we're not in the day of transparencies anymore, Ken.
No,
It's
I
like,
understand.
I'm
Do you
gonna
know-
do a t-shirt. I
do you
am
know why-
doing a t-shirt that says
Well,
"Film is
cameras-
dead. Get over it."
cameras are a tenth of a stop accurate though. So if the camera is a 1/10 of a stop accurate and you're a 1/3 of a stop off,
Right.
that's a pretty huge amount of being off. Can
Yeah.
you fix that in post? If you're shooting raw files and you're shooting all that, you shoot a JPEG, forget it. You're screwed. That's just basically
I'm
the same as shooting
I'm
like
convinced
slide
the
film.
more and more I shoot, like all these cameras come out, the reason people like the Alexa the most is because it's the most forgiving.
Yeah,
There's
you
the
get missed
answer.
by a long way.
There's the answer. It's forgiveness factor. Well, these help within that. You don't have to have that forgiveness, as a matter of fact. And if you look, if you have a 1/3 of a stop off, you're actually losing a lot of detail when you start to push and pull that film, or in this case, the actual
You know,
files.
here's my problem with these, and it's not that I have a problem. I have one, and I use it not very often. I have to admit, I don't use it very often. But
But you understand light.
and I guess maybe it's where I'm at, because I know if I set a certain strobe head up on a certain power at a certain distance, I'm going to have about f8.
Right.
And so for me, your guy that takes an
That's
hour.
called street cred.
Yeah. The guy who takes an hour, I'm going, first thing he's doing wrong is you set up all your lights on, turn them all on at once, you're dead. You turn your lights on
Start
one
from-
at a time.
start from the back, move
yeah,
forward.
You
Sure.
figure one light at a time, and it goes up really fast, Of
course.
But this does really help. I mean, I can't discredit a light meter. It really is
for
sloppy
video,
work.
You need it for video. 'Cause
So
it's
talk
like-
about that. Talk
okay.
about what.
Well, and I just read something. I can't remember the DP, but he was talking about shooting a feature film. It was kind of a horror film. So they were in a low lit room,
Okay.
and it says after you're in a room that's just dimly lit for 2 weeks, your eyes adjust. Your eyes adjust to
pretty
Mars.
soon. Everything looks good.
So then you start with everything at a like an f4, right? But then as you start to move along, your eyes adjust, so you start going brighter, or darker, because you're thinking, oh, it's too bright because my eyes adjust, so you go darker on the image. So it's great to just get a light meter in there and go, oh, my eyes are fooling me. This, it's like, because that's the problem with digital right now, is that everybody's just looking at a monitor going, oh, we got an image. But that's where a light meter comes in, because it's sometimes I meter something and I go, oh, what, really?
Well, here's the thing.
Like, no way, I'm way
Same
off.
thing
You
outside.
get consistency. And consistency relates back to when you get into post-production in video, where I have scene 1, scene 2, and scene 3. If they're all lit all over the board, I have now much more problems trying to match all that video footage than I do if I just measured everything and had the settings the right way in the beginning. Again, more time saving.
Yep. Yeah. Most people don't use light meters because it truly becomes the craft, and you have to understand light, and you have
True.
to make. It really becomes other than I'm just feeling it.
They're
Well, that's
not
why the
as
first thing I
easy
usually tell people to do is to
No,
get
they're
one
not.
of these. Well,
Talk about the ISO.
okay, fine.
What's
As
the
far-
ISO limits on these? Do they go up to like?
This one goes up to, I think, 128,000th of us ISO.
That 128.
Yeah.
So,
Because as cameras technology, only
8,000.
8,000. That's another
8,000.
thing that's funny. Is it like?
You're not going to shoot a feature or something on 8,000 ISO.
No, of course not. But what if I'm doing like a, yeah, you're right. If I'm using a light meter,
A light meter.
I was going to say, wait a minute. You're breaking your own.
that 20-watt incandescent bulb that you have 20 feet away. Let me hold on.
Precisely.
It says I'm reading at 12,000. It's like,
Well, so here's
Why
where
do
it
that?
lends into the next level is going to be your color temperature meters.
Yeah,
Now,
see,
color
now-
temperature meters, there's actually a brand new one that was just announced. We're talking about a
light meter
couple
or
of days
color
ago.
temperature?
Color
Color
temperature.
temperature.
Different meter.
can you
different meter.
combine the two?
No.
No, there's anybody that does that.
Man, because that's like, I think right now in
You're
the
too
digital
young.
world,
It's
you
okay.
need color meters more than you need light meters.
I think that's
I
really
agree.
good
yeah.
thought.
I know, I
I mean,
agree.
you've got LED. How many? I mean,
Look
we
at
could
the mix in here. We got daylight going. We got the tungsten overhead.
4200 with a +3 green. We've got
Yeah, at
like,
least.
Actually, those
and-
are daylight balance. We'll put a bet on that.
Okay,
one.
we got to wrap up.
let's get
We
a
got to
color
wrp up what Ken wants to talk about.
So the
because
last one was
we're
there is a
done.
color temperature meter.
I
that's
disagree.
coming. It's a C700 by Sekonic. It's gonna run, however, about $1,800.
Whoa.
$1,700 to $1,800. That's what the map.
Is there a
No.
little ball that goes on the back of your iPhone gives you color meter?
Unfortunately, not
they've
not
got
that.
apps now that can do color meter.
Color?
Yeah.
That's going to
color
give you the
reading.
full color spectrum of light too.
No, I mean
This one does.
for an $1,800.
No, this
like,
one is designed to actually give you a
That's
full
a lot
color
of money,
spectrum readout.
$1,800.
It is, but that's from what I was reading on the spec wise, it's pretty impressive.
So if I take the
because
color, you don't have one here, right?
it was just announced.
Come on, Ken.
I'm sorry.
You're
Why are you talking about
short
it?
for us. Just kidding.
So
Okay, so next month let's do some tests
Yeah.
with a color meter. That would be a
Yeah.
fun thing to work with.
Because the
actually.
biggest thing is the new LED lights, the new fluorescence.
They're all over
It's
the
all
place.
over the
Can't really measure them well with the older technology meters that are color meters. So like the old color 3Fs, they do great, but they don't give you the full
They're
range.
kind of increments of thirds. Like,
And the other
remember
thing is
when
you
we
don't
were
know what
doing-
your
yeah.
deficiencies of color are, because that's the bigger one. CRI ratings, color rating index, which is the next thing too that we need to really kind of think about. The different lights, fluorescence, typically we're going to have anywhere from an 80 CRI rating up to 95 CRI ratings. HMIs are 95 ratings.
And that's what Ken wants to talk about. He's
Going
lost us. He's lost us completely.
Yeah, well, sorry.
We're gone. But the color meter would be something good to look
That's
at.
the
We've
next-
used them on
Yes.
set. They've been frustrating a little bit.
They are
so,
frustrating.
Yeah.
Well, the new one should be as
because
good.
we don't use them as
We
much.
can't start this again. And that's what Ken wants to talk about.
Thanks.
We're trying something different. We're going to split this into 4 segments. They'll come up once a week on our YouTube channel. So each one of these segments is going to have a different topic, but the entire show is going to be at theslantedlens.com. It will post up at the very beginning of the month. So if you want to see the entire show from beginning to end, go to theslantedlens.com where you can see the entire show. But if you want to see them in segments, shorter segments, smaller bites, so you can watch them at your desk, go to our YouTube channel where we'll put them up one segment at a time.
Or if you're in your car and you want to listen to it on the road, you can download or subscribe to the podcast and get it that way. And I think it's called Trench from the Trenches from the Slanted Lens.
And from the trenches.
Yep. So
There you
download the
go.
podcast. I love podcasts, man. That's how I get most of my information these days. So
Very good.
do it. It's good. It's worth it.
So keep those cameras rolling.